Well, thank you all for coming here today. I wanted to take an opportunity to update you on the murder investigation we are conducting that occurred at 1033 Flushing Avenue in Clearwater. The victims in this case, David Swan, 88 years old, 4 kids from a previous marriage. Mina Swan, 80 years old, 3 kids from a previous marriage. They both married in 1998. David is retired CPA, but he's a pretty active and savvy investor, even into his late 80s. Mina is a retired school teacher from Clearwater High School. Many may be more familiar with her as Mrs. Wolf. In summary, David and Mina were an elderly couple. They were living out their retirement outside of the crime that we're investigating. They lived in basically a quiet and peaceful neighborhood. We have and will continue to ask for the public's help in identifying anyone that would want to hurt this retired couple. David and Mina seem like very nice people, and it's hard to fathom what the motive would be to hurt such nice persons. Many of the details in this investigation cannot be shared to protect the integrity of the investigation and also to help us evaluate the credibility of the information that we're receiving through tips and through interviews and through forensic evidence. Our investigation began on September 29th, 2018 at about 1:52 p.m. and it continues and will continue into the foreseeable future. David and Mina were discovered deceased when a neighbor and a family member became concerned after not seeing the two since Thursday and saw some newspapers collecting at the house. What I can share in the investigation is that David and Mina were seen alive on Thursday, September 27th in the early afternoon. From the investigation, we are looking closely at a 24-hour window from Thursday, September 27th around 3 p.m. To Friday, September 28th about the same time, 3 p.m. Although our investigation is looking closely at that window as a suspected period of time when these 2 murders occurred, the investigators are also looking at leads outside of that window. I can share that David and Mina were both shot and killed, and as previously reported, are homicide victims. The evidence does not indicate that the evidence does indicate that the offender came with the intent to kill David and Mina. This does not appear to be a random act. Being vigilant and following simple common crime prevention techniques like locking your doors, your car doors, your home doors, your garage doors is always a very prudent thing to do for safety, but we do not believe there is any reason for the rest of the community to be concerned. Clearwater detectives and Pinellas County Sheriff's Office forensic specialists spent over 40 hours working in the crime scene, documenting the crime scene, processing the crime scene, and collecting trace evidence. The collection of trace evidence is very time-consuming. Any person that entered the Swan home would leave trace evidence behind, and that would be in the form of hair, fibers, skin cells, touch DNA, a variety of different things, that those traceable substances would be very vitally important for our investigation, and so it's very important that we collect them in a very methodical manner and in a very appropriate manner. We know that in murder cases there's usually some form of a victim-offender relationship. Investigators will therefore speak to anyone that had a relationship with the Swans, whether it's family, friends, or business dealings. We're going to talk to everyone and anyone involved or connected to the family until we get to the bottom of it. We'll continue to ask for anybody who might be aware of any evidence or any issues that people had with the Swans, or they saw anything suspicious in that neighborhood, that they get that information to us and get that information to us through a variety of means that our PIO will share with you to receive. I now would like to ask Mina's daughter, Noelle, if you'd be willing to join us. I know she has a few words that she would like to share with you, if you'd be so kind and be gentle for her, all right?
Our family is devastated by this loss. Mom and Dave love life. They'd just come back from their second trip to Iceland. They loved it so much. This time they were careful not to go when it snowed, which helped. They had plans to go see the fjords in Norway next year and the Caribbean this fall. Many years ago, they took numerous trips across the country in their RV, including several trips to Alaska, which they loved. We would be a little stressed when they would take off with bad tires on the RV, but they were never worried about what would happen. They made friends with the people who helped them along the way and with fellow travelers everywhere they met. People loved them. We just returned from a family reunion in Massachusetts. both still proudly wore their Appalachian Trail caps from hiking the trail when they were in their 70s. Dave even wrote a book about their adventures, which all of us in the family learned a few more adventures we hadn't quite known about at the time. So we always said they were protected by the angels, that someone loved them. It was a joy in Mom's life to meet her birth family a few years back, and both Dave and I shared a love of genealogy that is also shared by some of his daughters. Mom was adopted at birth in Worcester, Massachusetts, and she came to St. Petersburg many, many years ago, graduating from St. Pete High. She was very proud of being a Floridian. She loved the birds, the nature, and everything around here. Dave had a very strong Southern accent. He was from Shreveport, Louisiana. He would get teased about his accent, but truly we loved it, and I always hoped he thought our jokes were endearing rather than poking fun. Mom and Dave loved to dance, even if they were the only ones on the dance floor, or even if there wasn't a dance floor, they loved it. To them, it was about enjoying life every moment. Mom loved her grandchildren. She rode roller coasters, even into her 70s. Even I don't do that. She was so proud of her grandson who shared her love of reading, her granddaughters who shared her love of reading and art, her grandson who loved gardening, and all of them, I think, have a spirit of travel and adventure that she would love. Dave and Mom were well known in the neighborhood. They walked their dog Benji, could literally set a clock by those walks up until Benji's death a few months ago, which was just devastating to all of us. He was a big part of their lives. At 5 o'clock, when Mom and Dave would sit down with their crackers and cheese and a glass of wine, Benji was right there and would get his cheese too. He loved that. I inherited my love of reading from my mother. She always had a book open. Didn't matter what it was. Usually there were 3 or 4 books open at a time. We would share them back and forth. It was a joy of our lives to go visit any bookstore on any trip we were in. And just the week before, we were down at our favorite bookstore at Haslam's in St. Petersburg. My brother shared my mother's love of gardening. When Mom and Dave would take off on their trips, she would forget to water her plants, so we constantly replenished her cuttings, and there were always new things to keep her excited about her gardens. My brother had some special cuttings for Chinese lanterns in his Pride of Barbados that he was looking forward to giving her just as soon as they were growing. Now, Dave, he loved to grow greens, and for any of the neighbors who were fortunate enough to know Dave, there was always a surplus of turnip greens around if you were hungry or loved turnip greens in your soup. The salad greens, I think, we appreciated a little bit more. He was sad to lose his grapefruit tree, but he had a banana tree he planted last year and was looking forward to the bananas when they harvested. Mom was an art teacher for many, many years, and she taught at Clearwater High. She loved her students, even those who couldn't pick up a pencil. She thought everyone has artistic talent. She believed in them, even if truly they had never been in an art class before. I inherited none of that talent, but we were planning to take a pastels class in Dunedin this fall. She was willing to sit through a beginner's pastel class with me just so that we could take a class together. That was Mom. You could find Dave at a bridge match pretty much any time during the week. He loved bridge. He was more than slightly competitive, as some of his partners would attest. He was a little frustrated that the combined ages of his between himself and his partner often came close to 2 centuries. That's a little tough, but he was competitive and played bridge up till the very end, and it was a passion of his life. Please remember our mom and dad. keep them in your thoughts. Sorry. I just want to say thank you for Detective Knickie and everyone in the Clearwater Police Department who's working so hard on behalf of our parents. We truly appreciate it. Thank you.
I'll be more than happy to try to take a few questions. Just recognize that there are details I just won't be able to release related to the investigation.
Can you expand on contacting everyone that has some sort of relationship with Mina and Dave? I know you mentioned often in cases like this, there is some connection to someone who knows the couple. Can you talk about that a little more?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you know, they're in their 80s, and they have a pretty large extended family, and as I mentioned in my comments, you know, David was a savvy, active investor, and so there's a lot of relationships there. Doesn't mean that any one of them's bad, but we're going to look at all of them. And so there's a lot of family, a lot of friends, and a lot of people that we're just going to get to the point where we try to talk to everybody and anyone that had any type of contact. And so that's a normal step and stage of an investigation like this. And in addition to that, you use your forensic evidence to kind of lead you in other paths as well. And it's going to be an extensive investigation.
You talk about it being clear that whoever did this went to the home with the intent specifically to kill. I don't know how much you can tell us about how you came to that conclusion, but that's very specific.
Yes, and that's some of the details I just can't release. I just believe the person that went there, based on the evidence I've seen, indicates that they went there to murder this nice elderly couple. And I can't tell you why yet, but I'm going to work pretty hard trying to.
Because sometimes we see home invasions and whatnot. Do you not think this was a home invasion where something got out of hand, or was this specific first-degree murder?
I think anything's possible, but I don't believe that the evidence supports that right now.
Was there anything missing from the home?
I'm not going to go into detail on that, and as you can also understand, it would be very hard to even make that conclusion, because you know, you never know if somebody had a different little shoebox underneath the bed or something. So I can't tell you that what is or is not missing from the home.
Anybody else reside with them, Chief?
No, ma'am. They're the only two residents in the home that I'm aware of.
And you were able to pinpoint the specific time frame. I think it's Thursday at 3 p.m. to Friday at 3 p.m.
We're focusing on that window right now. Of course, it doesn't mean that we wouldn't look at things outside of that window. So if somebody has information, we still want it. You know, you never know if you had somebody in the neighborhood a couple days earlier or something too. So we want every potential information, but we do believe that this crime happened. We're pretty comfortable within that window.
Who saw them on Thursday?
I'm sorry, let me finish with her and I'll be back.
Can you explain just what led to narrowing it down to that?
Sure. Well, I'll be able to tell you some of it. I won't be able to tell you all of it. But some of it is just the fact that certain neighbors saw them in a certain time frame. And then, of course, you have other activities, the papers and stuff that's not collected.
Is there any way, do you think that you've come any further in this investigation over the last couple of days? I know it's hard to get into specifics, but are you going down any paths that you know, are good, that may lead to something like an arrest?
Yeah, I did homicide investigations for a long time, and when they break fast. And you often start out with this really large funnel. We're still in the large funnel side, and so we're going down every path that's in front of us right now and seeing where it leads us. And so the answer to your question is if can I tell you this is the one that we're there? No, we're still in a big window. We're still actually identifying and making the funnel bigger every day. But I do feel we're closer today than we were last Saturday, and we're closer to being done with it every day that passes.
I know you had asked the homeowners around that area for any surveillance video that they might have within that time frame. Were you successful in getting any of that surveillance video?
Yes, so we've received a lot of video from residents, a lot of video in the area, and we're collecting it from a variety of different sources, and that analysis was going on pretty much continuous.
What's the importance of getting in front of the cameras and keeping this case out there for our viewers?
Well, when it first started out, we were pretty tight on a lot of details because we were still trying to gather a lot of facts. I felt I owed it to the public to at least give them this opportunity to hear where we are currently. I think it's important for the public to see the family and get to know these victims and understand that part of the tragedy. And then, of course, we also want to keep people mindful of giving us information that they think might be relevant. And so, yeah, there's really kind of several different incentives for doing this, but I think it's important for me to be able to reassure the public that I don't believe this is, you know, an act that is random, and I don't believe that the rest of the public's in danger.
They were discovered last Saturday.
Saturday, just before 2 p.m. Any other questions?
I know you talked a lot about they have a large family. How have you been able to glean more information from extended family members?
Yeah, well, you're in an investigation like this, you're looking at your victimology as a big portion of it and kind of understanding who they are and what their interactions were and what could potential motives be. So the family members help us get to know them after their passing and help us identify a lot of that stuff. And this is, like I said, a large extended family, so some of that takes even time as well to be able to get some FaceTime and some interview time with them. They're grieving, so sometimes when you're grieving, you got to go back and talk to them again because you may not be able to have a conversation while people are really upset. So there's multiple conversations that occur. And they help lead you to friends. They lead you to other business contacts, so they are a source of information for us. And they, like us, and I think everyone in the public has a very vested interest in seeing this person arrested.
Is there a reward, Crime Stoppers, or?
The Crime Stoppers options is always available, absolutely. So we would receive tips through the Crime Stoppers information. We also would receive tips here.
But is that something that's involved in this case right now? Like usually we get the release from them saying like, $3,000.
Yeah, those, well, I don't know if they set
Right.
necessarily a dollar figure this early on, but okay. Yeah, there's a mechanism for rewards through the Crime Stoppers program that are, if there isn't one pre-established, then they have a board that kind of establishes the reward once the tip comes in. But we would definitely encourage people to utilize that resource to give us information.
And the fact that you are saying that this wasn't a random act and that the public should not be afraid, especially those who live in the neighborhood, does that point the finger at, you know, maybe this was somebody that knew that?
I don't know who did it yet. So, but I think statistically, there is usually, as I alluded to earlier, a victim-offender relationship. And and then you take other things into account that I won't be able to share that makes us believe that that is a possibility. It doesn't mean we're going to exhaust any other options or any other possibilities. We're going to go down every path that gets put in front of us. You know, that is definitely one of the reasons why I kind of feel comfortable that we don't have someone out there that's terrorizing the neighborhood.
You seem like such a lovely couple enjoying retirement, not the type of couple that would have any enemies. I mean, how do you proceed when it's that sort of situation?
Yeah, that's really a tough question to answer without going into some other details that I can't. But I think your assessment, I think they are good people. I think they're nice people. I think they were enjoying life. And good people are victims of crimes. And until, not to kind of give you, I'm not trying to give you a song and dance Yogi Berra thing, but you don't know till you know. And that's where we are. So we're looking at many different options and many different, sometimes it's, the motives related to murder tend to be, whether it's greed or revenge or jealousy or crimes of passion. There's a whole litany of potential. So we'll look at all those as potential options. And it's hard to believe that a couple in their 80s could fall into one of those categories, but it has before. So we'll figure it out. Any other questions? Okay, I'll be around for a few more minutes if anybody needs any one-on-one stuff. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it.